everyone, welcome back to my channel. I'm Irina, children's book illustrator, and today we're diving into a very important topic every children's book illustrator needs to know: trim, bleed, and safety zones. Whether you're new to book illustration or you're just looking to refine your skills, this video will guide you through these essential concepts and how to apply them to different book sizes. Plus, I've created some handy template guides that will be a great help to you, and I'll be sharing with you about it just in a second, so stick around. We definitely need to start with the basics. We need to try and figure out what is the trim, the bleed, and what are the safety zones. Well, simply put it as these terms refer to the areas around your illustration and that ensures your illustration and your artwork looks perfect after printing. Now let's talk about the trim. Basically, in other words, trim is the final size of your printed book, and anything outside the trim area will be cut off. Now let's talk about the bleed. The bleed is extra space beyond the trim, where your artwork extends. This ensures there is no white edge when the page is cut. Bleed is still important whether you have a full color illustration or just one character in the center of it. It's also very important to think about the safety zone. Safety zone really helps you to make sure that all your work is properly centered on the page. Safety zone is a margin inside the trim area. It helps you again to keep essential elements like text. Yes, we need to really pay attention to text and important details here to avoid getting too close to the edge. And also I should mention that safety zone sometimes is called live area. And the idea with the live area in a full bleed page is that even though you can't literally see it, it forms the margin of safety. So again, you would put your all main action characters, dialogue, text, whatever inside this box. Mostly if you're drawing any standard American book, the sizes for the bleed, trim, and safety zone would be the same. Again, you need to calculate them and remember that should be done on all sides of the page. It's not that complicated, but you do need to pay some attention. And if you have a client and if, say, they print something overseas and maybe it's a board book or some other book you've never done before, you should always make sure that they confirm it with their printer about the sizes. Very often, if I work with US authors, and self-publishers, they would print their work through Instagram or through Amazon. And actually, you as a professional, I find it completely your responsibility to figure out what would be those sizes for the book. The only thing you need from the client is the final book size. Say, for example, the client is ordering a book that is 8.5 by 8.5. So you could always go to Ingram Spark, you could go to Amazon. They have a very good description of how those lines would work in the end. But I remember myself in the beginning, I kind of at one point understood that this is easy and these are the numbers. But on the other hand, my mind was always blown away by this. I don't know. Once I've done my first book, it kind of all became very clear to me. But again, practice makes perfect. Of course, it's a great skill to know how to calculate those sizes so you could check yourself, but to save your time and be sure in your work, I've created the guides that you can purchase on my website. I have made them specifically for Photoshop and for Procreate, so you could use them in both, and I also made them in two color modes, for CMYK or for RGB, because I find that a lot of guys that are sold online, they would be in CMYK mode, but I draw my illustrations in RGB and then I convert them to CMYK in Photoshop. That's just how I do it. It's my preference. I do not have any problems with printing because I do my adjustments during this process. It's not that hard at all. So I need that guide to be in RGB. So that's why I came up with the idea to do it for myself. At first it started just with the book sizes that I've worked with, but later on I just added more, and so I want to share it with you. And now let's look at this page. I have illustrated this page. It's 8.5 size, and look right here. I have my safety zone, which tells me exactly where I should place my text. It also helps me because I would be placing my text exactly in the same spot when I would be working with all the other pages. It also helps to make everything even to work if you work in Photoshop, if you could work in spreads too, because this way you could just put the line down here as a guide and then you adjust your text accordingly. This way it would look exactly the same on every single page. Also, right here we see that I have all my important elements within the safety zone, but it still extends beyond, so when the page would be cut off, I would not have a problem such as the whiteboard. And also we do have a gutter here, so you need to make sure that if you place any elements close to it, that they might be a little bit lost. And sometimes when I know there is like the spreads, I really love how they look in theory, is when we have this face in the very middle of the book. It looks amazing, but honestly when we open up the book and the face kind of look a little smudged, I don't really like that. So, but again, that's the preference choice, because I know that all the clients I've worked with, they wouldn't go for this. They would rather have it separated. And same goes with the spread. So when you're planning the spread, try to plan it accordingly, so there is nothing very important in the middle, especially like the main characters. So this way it looks beautiful, I think, so when you can see the full picture on both sides. And when you're working on your iPad, for example, you would just right away open up this guide and then you would start sketching, keeping that in mind. And when you're ready to export your work to a Photoshop format or whatever format you work at, you would just make it invisible and that's it. Actually, you could just transport it the way it is right away to Photoshop, because when you will open it up in Photoshop, you could just then disable this layer and then delete it when you're gonna sort of shut the whole work together. Maybe there's another way to say it, but it's a Control-E option. Yeah, I probably have to look it up. I think that to understand these concepts is crucial for every illustrator. I know that sometimes, not sometimes, but when you work, say, with some agencies, they would send you already the templates, you know, everywhere, even like you need to put your illustration here. But when you work with self-published authors, it's all on you. It's your job to know where you're going to put all those elements, including the text. I actually love this concept because it actually means that I am like all in Illustrator. I know everything from illustrating the book to formatting it later on and saving it and making it completely ready to print as like one file as a book. And it actually means a lot of things. It means that the clients, they like working with me because it's only one person they have to deal with. They do not have to transfer this work to somebody else explaining whatever they need. I know my platforms, Ingram Spark and Amazon, and even when I worked with the printers overseas, I think it was China, I would say it's pretty much exactly the same process, and they have very, very similar requirements as the printers in the US. Again, I would just remind you that before working on any project, make sure that you establish this very important thing with your client, that once you set the book, the size for the book, it cannot be changed later, because you cannot resize this work if you already started working, say, by 8.5, and then they want a longer book, say 8 by 11. So just make sure your client understands that, so this way you would avoid any unnecessary edits or misunderstanding later on. And of course, probably off topic, but make sure you always sign a contract and get a deposit for your work, because I've had a lot of situations like that. And even if you think that, I know some platforms that you work at, maybe like Behance, for example, you could quote your client and include all the paper, all the files in there. But you have, first of all, you have to wait sometimes way too long until the work is done. Second of all, what will happen if you have through your work and the client is MIA? You didn't get any deposit and you will not, you know, that's it. That's gone. So don't do that. You could always quote for your payment to be done in installments, or maybe if you're that cool, they could just pay up front. But I guess it depends on the sum. Then probably could be paid up front. But if it's a larger sum, like a book, you could do installments according to the process stages. Again, if you're interested in any of that, let me know. I'll make a video about it because I find it very important to know how to properly communicate with your client, so both you and the client are on the same page. I hope you guys liked this video. If you did, please put the thumbs up. Do not forget to subscribe to my channel and check out the links below in the description for the template guides. You can also subscribe to my newsletter on my website or just check it out. I wish you guys all the best, happy illustrating, and I will see you in my next video.